club teams.
After the earthquake and its aftershocks, almost 200,000 people in China's Sichuan province have been evacuated from villages threatened by a swelling lake in danger of bursting its banks. However, tonight officials denied reports that 1.3 million people were also about to be moved to higher ground, insisting it was just a training exercise. Hundreds of troops have been rushed to the landslide-blocked river of Sichuan, where they're racing to dig a channel to relieve pressure from the rising waters and protect the city of Mian Yang. Our science correspondent Julian Rush has this report.
Millions of cubic meters of water now flood the steep mountain valley above Sichuan. The quake triggered a huge landslide that blocked the river. In a desperate race against time, Chinese engineers are trying to cut a channel through the landslip to release the waters before they spill over the dam. They reckon they've got about 10 days before that happens, assuming it doesn't rain or the dam bursts first. So far, the bulldozers have cut just a third of the spillway. China has been throwing huge resources at the effort, but bad weather has hindered the work. There's now a very real fear that towns and cities downstream could be wiped out or flooded if the dams burst. And with the rain and the aftershocks, the earth is still moving. Chinese television filming this landslide in a nearby mountain valley. Across the quake zone, landslides have created 34 so-called quake lakes. There are 4 on the Sichuan River alone. It flows from the bottom of the screen through the town of the same name. The landslips, downstream, in the town itself, another just upstream, and the 4th and most dangerous higher up the river. Tangjiashan is the largest of the newly created lakes. It now holds some 130 million cubic meters of water, swelling with an extra 9 million each day. If it bursts, Sichuan town would be annihilated by a wall of water and debris that would then threaten the city of Mian Yang as it surged onto the plain below.
It's not possible to live there anymore. No way. The bottom of our house has fallen away. We can't stay there anymore, so we've left.
She's abandoned her home in a village below the lake, another refugee among the 5 million left homeless. With other villagers, they've collected what's left of their belongings.
I would never have thought something like this could happen in my life, something I just can't face. It's impossible to put it into words.
Tents are now home to some of the nearly 200,000 who have already been evacuated to avoid the potential deluge. Here in Mian Yang, officials will spend the weekend rehearsing procedures for evacuating a further 1.3 million people to higher ground, denying first reports they were actually going to give the order to move. The official numbers are big and getting bigger. At noon today, he says, the death toll, 68,858, over 18,000 still missing, over 15 million evacuated, 45.5 million affected. As the battle to drain the lake goes on, a lot now depends on the weather. Rain could trigger a disaster. But for now, Chinese officials say they're confident. No heavy rain is forecast for the next 10 days. But then, that's just about as long as they've got.
Julian Rush reporting from Newcastle. We're joined now by Dr. Alex Densmore. He's the Deputy Director of Durham University's Institute of Hazard and Risk Research, and he's been to the Chinese dams to study the impact of earthquakes. Dr. Densmore, how seriously do you view the risks? Obviously, the Chinese see them serious enough to move all these tens of thousands of people, but what are the real risks that there could be, say, more than one go?
I think there's a very significant risk. The danger is really twofold. One is that all of these dams, because they're composed of very loose material, once the water begins to overtop them, there's a very high probability that they'll just fail catastrophically, and there's really nothing you can do once that process begins. Second issue is, as was referred to in the report, is that there are multiple dams along the same river. And so if one dam goes, you face the prospect of a chain of dominoes happening, and you could get multiple failures along that river reach.
It's rather curious that they actually constructed them like this. I mean, has this long been known? It's just that they never thought there'd be an earthquake here?
Well, the danger, again, there's a difference between the landslide dams, which have actually formed in the earthquake by the removal of material from these very, very steep slopes and dumping that material down into the valley bottoms, and then the man-made dams, of which there are many. But there hasn't really been any historical earthquakes in this part of China, so there isn't really a historical precedent to suggest that those man-made dams might cause a problem.
So far as you can tell, I mean, what the Chinese are doing, is it the right thing?
Absolutely. I mean, the most important thing at this point is to decrease the amount of water that's trapped behind those dams, and really the only way you can do that is by digging spillways to allow some of that water to escape. You want at all costs to keep the water from overtopping the dams and causing that sort of catastrophic failure. So there's really not much you can do beyond dig and really hope that the rain doesn't make your task that much more difficult.
Are you able to look across your department and see anywhere else in the world where sudden dams created by an earthquake like this occur? Is there any way of saying what actually does happen if you have a myriad of dams on one waterway?
It's a very well-known process in mountainous regions. So, excellent recent example of this was in the Kashmir earthquake in 2005. There were some very large landslide dams that were created and then failed within a couple of weeks and caused significant devastation downstream. So it's a process that we're really beginning to look at because it extends the zone of potential hazard associated with the earthquake far beyond the actual part of the fault that ruptures, and it means that there are a significantly larger number of people who are at risk.
Dr. Densmore, Durham University, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.